Football on Off the Ball.
With William Hill, you can boost your winnings on the Sunday game with new Bet Builder Extra. Only with William Hill. Download the app today. 18 plus gamblingcare.ie.
This is News Talk.
Now, as we mentioned, a 4-0 win for Ireland over Greece in Crete today. A bounce-back win after the 4-0 defeat in Slovenia in February. Second half goals from Marissa Sheva, Ciara Carusa, Jess Stapleton and Amber Barrett secured the win, and all the goals came after half-time when the Irish captain, Katie McCabe, was brought on. Delighted to be joined by former Republic of Ireland manager Sue Ronan. Sue, how are you?
I'm good, Mick. How are you keeping?
Not too bad now, not too bad. A little bit better after the second half today than I was at half-time, Sue. Carla Ward said before the game that it was a must-win, and we were a little bit worried after the shaky first half, but all in all, I think she'll be pretty happy with that.
Yeah, it definitely was a must-win, and I think at the end now she'll definitely be happy, but I'm sure, like the rest of us at half-time, she was a bit concerned because the first half wasn't good enough. I think we carried on from the game against Slovenia. There was a bit of a hangover there. I think the girls looked nervy. The play was static. There wasn't enough movement. The passing was poor again. We were trying to play through a congested midfield, and the Greeks were just closing us down and hitting us on the counter-attack and causing us trouble, causing us problems at the back. And it wasn't looking good, up until the half-time. So to turn it around the second half and to win by 4 and to really wipe out those 4 goals we gave away against Slovenia in terms of the goal difference for the group, I think it was fantastic. It should be happy at the end of all that.
Yeah, and even the turnaround, I mean, there was this is a Greece team that are 61st in the world. We saw in the second half their level more than probably what Ireland played to them in the first half. It was the type of level of team that Ireland were hammering in League B last time when Eileen Gleeson was over. But at the same time, I felt like the way Ireland were playing in the second half when it was 2-3-0 and spraying the ball around and the ball was sticking to feet, I think that kind of boost in confidence could really stand to this team going forward, because it's like as if they had to rediscover their belief in themselves.
Yeah, it's like as if we had to go through a bit of pain, really. We've gone through that, really. We've had 2.5 poor performances, really, and then we had a good half there in the third game under Carla. I mean, we were lucky to beat Turkey in Tallaght Stadium. Now, I know the pitch wasn't great, the conditions weren't great. We carried that on then to Slovenia when we really were poor, and that carried on to today as well. So I think the goal definitely changed things, there's no doubt about it, and coming so early, you could see a spring in the players' step. You could see, they were more aggressive, the intensity was better, the passing was better, players all of a sudden all wanted the ball, players were getting forward, there wasn't that same pressure on the shoulders as such in the first half. They just looked more free in their movement and more eager to play the way they can. And you're right, they probably just needed that, and hopefully they can carry it on now and continue on Tuesday night where they left off tonight.
Yeah. Katie McCabe, I suppose we were all surprised to see her name not in the first 11, but Carla Ward spoke before the game about managing her minutes after a recent injury with Arsenal and so on. She was brought on at half-time in her preferred left-back position, or certainly preferred from our point of view. I don't know about Katie, actually, but everything just seemed to make a little bit more sense with what Ireland were trying to do in terms of the playing out for the back and having that out ball and so on, and having somebody to actually deliver the ball for a finish as well. It's such an obvious thing to say that a player like Katie McCabe can change how Ireland can play. We know her quality, we know her level, but it's funny seeing a half without her followed by a half with her really just brought that into focus in a way that you wouldn't be used to seeing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think Katie would probably say she hadn't had her 2 best games for us in the last 2 games. Now, I suppose most of the team didn't, but she was really good when she came on. And I mean, she played a leader's role. She played a captain's role. She knew she knew she had to do something. She had to lead by example, and she started off from the very beginning. I think her first touch was a free kick, and it was just over the crossbar. And then the second one was an assist. I think it was a cross. But yeah, she was self-assured. She broke the lines. She was able to take the ball on, past players and bring other players into the game. And I think Marissa Sheva, she had a really good game too. So I think in fairness to her, she can be proud of her performance. I actually think she's been unlucky not to start, and we might see her on the starting 11 now on Tuesday night. But I thought she made a huge difference in the second half as well. And she's a player that can cause havoc in the middle of the park. You know, she makes great runs. She's loads of energy. She's technically very good. She's fit enough to get up and down the park, so she can do the donkey work to defend as well if need be. In the transitions to defend, but she gets herself into little spaces. And I mean, I know her goal was lucky, but if you don't shoot, you know, you're not going to score. But I think between herself and Katie, they made a huge difference when they came on the second half. And I'm sure Carl is very pleased with the impact her bench had.
Yeah, she's an interesting player, Sheva. She's someone that kind of always comes on and causes a little bit of chaos, and I think fans want that sort of little bit of sort of energy in a player like that. She's obviously just moved to Sunderland. We were just going through her club record in America, and you know, just really never played all that much, you know, and so it seems to have more games for Ireland than she does at club level. How much going to a club like Sunderland, who are on the up in the women's game, will stand, like if she does get regular game time, she becomes a much more of a kind of a straightforward choice for Ireland, doesn't she?
Yeah, and you know, she's playing the championship now in England, and maybe the level in the United States, maybe it was that little bit too high for her. I don't know. I know she was in the team. Was it Washington Spirit she was with?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, I would expect her to be starting all the time for Sunderland, and the game time will probably help her. And, you know, we're calling for her to be in the team. And I know after one or two good performances before, I also called for her to be in the team, and then she'd start and maybe not be so good, and, you know, it'd end up being taken off or whatever. But I think the more games she has, and the more opportunities she has to play with the players, you know, and the freedom she'll get now in the middle of the park with Carla, because Carla will want her to be on the front foot and will want her to be creative and take a bit of the pressure off the shoulders of Denise O'Sullivan, because up until now it's all been really on her shoulders to be that creative person. But if you have the likes of Sheva beside her, you've got two players in there now that can, you know, they're equally creative, and takes a bit of pressure from Denise. So I'd expect to see her, maybe, you know, hopefully nail down a place in the Irish team, you know, once she starts getting a good run in the Sunderland team.
So were you surprised when the team was named that obviously Heather Payne is injured and Katie couldn't play for, you know, managing minutes reasons, that there was three changes from the Slovenia game and only one of them was not enforced? Were you surprised that she kind of went back to the well with the group again, kind of after you know, playing so poorly, and as you said, the previous two games, it wasn't just the one?
Yeah, she could have made sweeping changes. Two of them were enforced, as you said. She could have made sweeping changes. I suppose maybe she thought, you know, we need to win this game. We need to get out of here with 3 points. Am I going to start making a whole heap of changes, putting pressure on the shoulders of players that maybe are only getting their first, second, third cap? And, you know, instead she went with that experience. And you can understand that as well, I guess. I think from listening to her, she said that they had the best week in camp since she took over. They had great, even the players are saying it, they had a great week. They trained really well and they didn't recognise themselves in the first half. I was delighted to see Jess Stapleton get a start. I think she's been someone knocking on the door now for the last couple of years. I think she's deserved more starts, not only under Carla, but under Eileen Gleeson, and indeed under Vera. She started in the squad under Vera, and I felt she's good enough to start more games. Likewise, Leanne Kieran, I know she gets a lot of injuries and stuff, but you know, she's a player I really like. She's aggressive, she's fast, and when we want our wingers to be fast, you know, she's good in the duels as well, good in 1v1s, and surprised to see her go off. Maybe it was managing her minutes, maybe she had a knock, I don't know. But yeah, there's one or two others I suppose that can feel, you know, lucky maybe that they still stayed in the team after the last two performances. But maybe the second half, you know, in the first half it wasn't looking much better for them, but and any of them could have been hooked at half time, apart from one or two, maybe Denise, maybe Jess, maybe Patton, but and Leanne as well, of course. But I think the second half everyone played a little bit better and played more to their potential. So hopefully it's given her a little bit of a selection headache now for Tuesday night.
Yeah, you mentioned Jess Stapleton. She got player of the match on RTE, and obviously she got a goal. I think the way Carla Ward spoke to her before spoke about her before the game matched how she spoke afterwards. She's very, very high on this player, I think, as we all are. But interesting, her and Anna Patton together, like that's a 20-year-old and a 25-year-old in central defence in a position that we've lost between the injury of Louise Quinn and the retirements and Niamh Fatty and Diane Caldwell. We've missed like hundreds and hundreds of caps. Where, you know, interesting. I know Greece weren't the greatest threat going forward, so it's hard to judge. But did you see enough to suggest there might be a bit of a partnership there?
Yeah, I think so. I think one player who can feel they're a little bit unlucky as well, hasn't got much game time, if any. I think maybe a little bit as a sub is Cochin Hayes.
Yeah.
I think she did quite well under Eileen, in fairness, and she hasn't really got a look in. So she probably feels a little bit peeved. But I think Patton has done well. I think Jess did well beside her. I think Jess did better. Even they all did better when Katie came on. And it's funny, we're campaigning for Katie to be playing higher up the pitch, but I think the position she's playing in, for this team, it probably suits her better. She's coming onto the ball. We don't have the same composed and long spells of possession that an Arsenal team would have, maybe, when she's playing higher up the pitch. So for her, I think the position she's playing in right now is probably the best one for her with the Irish team. But I think she brought that bit of composure at the back. I think Aoife Mannion also played well. You can see her getting forward a lot, and that's something I know Carla wants. She wants her wide players to invert a lot of the time in the higher areas and fullbacks to push on to support. Pitch wasn't that big or wasn't that wide, so they couldn't do it a lot, but certainly Mannion tried to do it as much as she could. So yeah, I can definitely see I can see Jess Stapleton having a long future in the team if she gets a run and she gets those opportunities. I mean, we've all seen the potential she has from an early age, and I think she's definitely going to fulfill that.
Yeah. One other thing that Carla Ward talked about after the game was, kind of excusing the first half performance in a way, is that, the players are taking in a lot of information. It's new still. And, it is kind of hard because we've been straight into a Nations League campaign. It is only her third game in charge, and it's probably one of the reasons there weren't many changes, and you probably wouldn't expect too many changes on Tuesday night either, because she'll want to get her first 11 as many minutes as possible in her system. Can you see the Carla Ward mark on the team after these 3 games?
Yeah, well, she wants them to build up from the back. She wants them to try and play through midfield. It didn't work today in the first half because the Greeks nullified that. The pitch maybe was too narrow. I think the two players, Rusha Littlejohn and Tyler Tolan, were both trying to do the same job, and it wasn't really that effective. It worked a bit better in the second half when we had Sheva on and she could get into more advanced positions. So that rotation was better in midfield. In the second half, you saw it more. In the first half, they looked a little bit headless in attack, but I think a lot of that had to do with the nerves. And yourself, when you're nervous, you're uptight, the ball's bouncing off you, you're static, you're not having that same movement, you're not trying things, there's no rotations. There's just that fear factor, but certainly in the second half you could see a little bit more her imprint and what she's trying to do. But it will take time. It's a lot of information. It's new personnel. It's new staff around the place. One or two new players coming in, a few gone. So it just will take a bit of time. So I think probably after the campaign will be the time to judge her, and certainly that game against Slovenia now in June is looking bigger than ever.
Yeah. You mentioned it's probably 2.5 poor performances, a half of a good performance. I do get the sense you're not getting carried away by the final scoreline, Sue. If you're the manager tonight and you're going home on the plane from Crete, are you living through the first half, or are you going through the second half in your head?
I'm living through the first half. I'm delighted with the second half. I'm delighted we got the win, and delighted with the goals and the different goal scorers, and the fact that the subs are making me think about, hey, I need to be starting the next day, and Amber Barrett falls into that category as well. But I'm looking at that first half and saying, why is this happening? We had a great week of training, and everybody was on form, and why is this happening? And that's not all down to shape either. That's about individual players taking responsibility, playing to their potential, playing to their ability, and playing as a team. And that didn't happen in the first half for the majority of it. And we're playing against a team that are ranked so much lower than us. How are they causing us these problems? So that's what I'm looking at on the way back on the plane. And I'd imagine Carla and her staff will certainly be looking at that between now and Tuesday.
What would you like to see on Tuesday night to show that we have made use that second half to make serious progress?
I'd like us to start off exactly how we finished, take the game to them, be aggressive, be on the front foot, look, try things, get on the ball, look for rotations, look for movement, move the ball quicker. As soon as we start moving the ball quicker against teams like this, we have the ability to hurt teams. But if it's laboured, if the passing's laboured, how many times in the first half did we give Greece the opportunity to get behind the ball because our passing was poor, it was sideways, it was backwards, it was slow? The fundamentals of the game, is move that ball fast, get good possession early, get into the game early, make yourselves hard to break down, because again, there was evidence in the first half where we could get caught on the break against a better opponent, who could punish us. So it's about getting that piece of it right as well as the attacking piece right. So really just to start the way we finished the second half is what I'd be looking for, and no excuses, no taking a half an hour to get into the game, because if you're playing against a better team, as we did against Slovenia, the game is over before you know it.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be watching on with interest anyway for the rest of the campaign to see if we can get it. Sue, before I let you go, just a wider question. Every time Ireland play away from home, it's on in the middle of the day, in an empty stadium in the middle of the week, and there's obviously when we in England play their games in nighttime, good crowds. We play in Tala and hopefully soon to be in the Aviva Stadium more often at nighttime, and it's just the effort is being put in by certain organizations, certain associations to try and make these games events, whereas it's very hard I don't know anything to do with the situation in women's football in Greece, but it's very hard not to just turn on the TV today and say no effort has been made there. They haven't tried to turn this into anything. I know it's 5 o'clock there rather than 3 o'clock or whatever, but still, there was nobody at the match really, and it was the same in basically all the away games we play. We very, very rarely get to cover when we're doing off the ball the away Ireland games. We're always talking about them straight away at the top of the show, having already been completed. It must be frustrating to see such a dichotomy between certain parts of the football world really going all in on women's football and it just being ignored in so many other countries.
Yeah, and it's not been ignored in Greece, because I know for a fact from working with FIFA that we are trying to support them. They're only starting out in terms of having a strategy for the women's game, building leagues, trying to get more girls playing, but they are very much in their infancy and compared to us. I mean, they've only one player playing abroad, the number 10, Sari, is that she plays with Everton. That's their first player playing in the Women's Super League, so they, they definitely are trying. There's huge cultural barriers in a lot of these countries. I don't know what, in terms of facilities, I don't know what it's like where they've access to a pitch with lights. I don't know whether that pitch had lights or not or whatever. Yeah. But, if you look back at the last group when we were in Group A, that's not the case for most of those countries. In fact, I'd say it's not the case for any of them. Certainly in our group, we played England, Sweden, France. They were all played at night time. They were all broadcast live. There was broadcast partners, full houses or very large crowds at them, So yes, that's the different level at the higher level, I guess.
It's hard to come back from that. It's not just a case of being relegated in terms of levels. That happens, but it's hard to come back from all of your games being an event to kind of going playing in the park again.
Yeah, absolutely, and when I think about when I was involved in the national team here and we didn't get crowds, and we didn't have TV and we didn't have anyone interested, I suppose a lot of the time we targeted afternoon games and we gave tickets out free to all the schools to try and get a crowd in. So potentially they're trying to do something like that, I don't know. But yeah, they're very much behind where we're at, and we're even behind where other teams are at. But I can imagine it is frustrating, for the players. They're in an empty stadium. They're not getting that lift from the crowd, but look, unfortunately it is what it is. So I suppose the sooner we get back up to Group A, the better. Yeah.
Sorry to be harsh on Greece, Sue. They're putting all the work in.
You're fine.
Sue, thank you so much for joining us. We'll talk to you soon, I'm sure.
Thanks, Mick. Take it easy.
Football on Off the Ball.
With William Hill, you can boost your winnings on every game with new Bet Builder Extra. Only with William Hill. Download the app today. 18 plus gamblingcare.ie.
This is News Talk.